Good to see everybody here. Happy you guys could join. So it's for the planning and zoning meeting. The planning and zoning meeting for Tuesday, May 12th is being called to order at 6:31 p.m. 6:31 p.m. May I please have a moment of silent meditation, and we're going to follow by the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. The Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, Republic, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I please have roll call, Madam Clerk?
Roll call. Mayor, Chairperson Cubillo says she's running late. She's not here yet. Vice Chair Nickerson.
Here.
Member Urban.
Here.
Member Pirella. Member Roman.
Here.
You have a quorum. Also present for the record, Janice Jacoby, Village Clerk, Interim Village Attorney Norman Powell, and Village Manager Cristia Alu.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate it. May I please have a approval of the agenda? If there's anything that anybody wants to add or delete, there's only one thing, but add or delete. Now is your time to
Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt you for a second, if I could read the announcement concerning virtual meetings.
Yes, please. Please, thank you, Mr. Attorney, thank you.
That's fine. It'll take a few minutes. On March 20th, 2020, Governor Ron DeSantis issued Executive Order number 2069 relating to local government public meetings. The governor's executive order suspends current laws that require a quorum be present in person and that a local government body meet in a specific public place. It authorizes local governmental bodies to use communication, media, technology, CMTs, such as telephonic and video conferencing, as provided in section 120.54B2 of the Florida statutes. Further, chapter 28-109, entitled Conducting Proceedings by Communications, Media Technology of the Florida Administrative Code, provides guidance for the procedures to be followed to conduct a proceeding by means of a communications media technology, or to provide access to a proceeding by use of a CMT. The governor's order does not waive any other requirement under the Florida Constitution and Florida's Government in the Sunshine Laws. The village is using Zoom to hold this virtual committee meeting. The Zoom platform does not require the public to purchase or download any additional software or equipment to watch this meeting. Zoom is a cloud-based platform for video and audio conferencing, collaboration, chat, and webinars across mobile devices, desktops, telephones, and room systems. Public comment will occur as they always do at council and committee meetings during good and welfare and after each agenda item prior to voting. When the chair opens the meeting for public comment, anyone wishing to participate will have 3 minutes to speak. Residents will be recognized to speak in the Zoom platform in the following ways. If you're using a mobile device, just click the raise hand button. If you're using a computer or a personal computer, click on the icon Participants on the bottom of your screen. You will see the option to raise your hand. There are also 2 ways to view the meeting on your screen. One is a gallery view and the other is a speaker view. Gallery view allows you to view all participants or most participants at the same time on your screen. In speaker view, whoever is speaking will be viewed from front and center, while other participants will be on the top in smaller squares. Please make sure to mute microphones on your computers when not speaking. If possible, use headphones to mitigate any feedback. When addressing the Village Council, please first state your name and your address. All comments submitted will be included as part of the public record for this virtual meeting and will be considered by the Village Council prior to any action taken. Everyone participating in this virtual meeting is required to maintain decorum. No clapping, applauding, heckling, or other verbal outbursts in support or opposition to a speaker or his or her remarks is permitted. No signs or placards shall be allowed. No person other than the person having the floor shall be permitted to enter into any discussion either directly or through a member of the committee without permission of the chair. No questions shall be asked of the committee or committee member except through the chair. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who shall become boisterous or rowdy, disruptive, or making personal comments while addressing the committee shall be barred from further participation in this virtual meeting. If at any time during the virtual public meeting, the ability of the public to listen or participate is interrupted due to any technical problem, the meeting shall immediately be paused during such time and will resume when the technical problem is corrected. The village has published an agenda as well as included in the notice to the public pursuant to our village code and the items and topics that will be discussed at this virtual meeting. Additionally, the public has been given the opportunity to provide comment during this meeting. Section 286.0114 4C of the Florida statutes specifically authorizes the village to prescribe procedures or forms for an individual to use in order to inform the council of his or her desire to be heard and to indicate his or her support, opposition, or neutrality on a proposition. The village has provided a procedure to indicate, among other things, a resident's support, opposition, and neutrality on the items and topics to be discussed in this virtual committee meeting. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, are you all comfortable with what I just outlined in the procedures I just articulated?
Yes, Mr. Attorney.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Attorney. I appreciate that. Also want to say thank you for everybody who's joining us tonight. Thank you, of course, to the entire council, Councilperson Roman, Urbom, Councilperson Corella. The mayor will be joining us shortly. She's in another meeting. Thank you, village manager. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Thank you for everybody else who's out here, the villagers joining us tonight. We appreciate it, and we love to see you all here. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Full Moon. We appreciate you guys too. All right, so right now we're going to move to Section D, the approval of the agenda. Right now, for the Planning and Zoning Committee, if you guys have anything that you want to add to the agenda or subtract, right now is the time to say that. Nothing being heard about adding or subtracting. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as is?
I move to move forward.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. It was motion was moved by Councilperson Roman, second by Councilperson Urbom. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. None. Moving right on. So we're moving to agenda item, the only one that's here, which is the Crystal Ray Miami High School Development Agreement. Mr. Attorney, if you would, can you read that ordinance into record?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of El Portal, Florida, approving and authorizing the mayor and village manager to execute and to otherwise enter into a development agreement between the Village of El Portal and Cristo Rey Miami High School, Inc. for the development of property located within the village as recorded in Official Records Book 29964, page 2748 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida, and as more fully described in the development agreement, which is attached hereto as Exhibit A, authorizing the appropriate village officials to do all things necessary to effectuate the intent of this ordinance, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. I appreciate it. Do we have the Crystal Ray representatives? Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. How are you doing?
Good.
All right, so we already did, Madam Mayor, we already did Pledge of Allegiance, moment of silent meditation. We've done the approval of the agenda. We were just opening up the attorney just read into the record the ordinance for the Crystal Ray Miami High School Development, and the floor is yours. I was just about to call up the Crystal Ray representatives, but the floor is yours, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, you can proceed. So where are we at? We're calling up Cristo Ray? The
Crystal Ray,
applicant?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Crystal Ray, available to
I see that Mr. Goldstein is raising his hands, but his mic is muted.
There. Can you hear me?
Is it? Oh, here we go.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me get started. First of all, thank you for having us. My name is Joe Goldstein. I'm an attorney at the law firm Holland & Knight, 701 Brickell Avenue, and honored to be here tonight representing Cristo Rey for their development agreement. You guys have been through several hearings at this point and several town halls to discuss a lot of issues related to Cristo Rey. On March 10th, you approved the special, or recommended, as this committee, recommended the approval of a special exception that will be hopefully going forward, coupled with this development agreement over the next several weeks. You have worked very capably over the years, as I've seen, in terms of entering into development agreements. So I don't think that I need to spend much time educating you as to what the development agreement is. And in fact, I don't think I have to spend much time, although I will spend more time discussing the development agreement and what's in it, because the purpose of this development agreement really is to move forward with the and formalize the representations that we've proffered thus far to the city, to the village. In that regard, I can't see, but I assume that Rudy Chechi, our fearless leader, who's been our speaker up until now at various hearings, is in the audience, and he will be there to answer any questions. Hopefully, Augustine Barrera, our architect, is there. John Kim, our traffic engineer, Otto Bade, who's from the Board of Trustees, and Alessandria San Ramon, whom I will work with. If it's okay with you, I'm going to now go into a little bit about the development agreement. As you know, we've made numerous representations over the past several months. We've spent, and I have to compliment your city attorney, many hours in sort of working through the terms of the development agreement to the point where it is, I think, a very solid agreement that we're moving forward with. And so with that, let me just sort of summarize for you the items that were representations that have been made and reference how they are formalized in the development agreement. First, if you have copies of it, we're really talking about paragraphs E through L, which is the substantive section of the representations. The first paragraph, E, goes into the fact that this is going to be proposed at and will be developed and operated.
Mr. Goldstein, can I pause you for a minute? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can we share that document on the screen?
Sure, yes.
Either if you or if Eunice, can you do that to share the document on the screen? Or because we are live, and for anybody who may not have it in front of them, I would like to be able to share the document.
Yeah, it's not what I have in front of me is not the development agreement. It's a summary of paragraphs E through L, but I'm happy to share that.
Eunice, do you have it in front of you that you can share your screen?
I don't have it.
You don't have the development agreement in front of you?
No, I don't.
Can you get it from the email that was sent to the?
I sent it to Kyle because everything's been run through him. Kyle, do you have it? I'm having a problem with sharing my screen, so that's why.
I'm going to see if I can pull it up. Give me 1 second.
Sorry, Joseph, but I just think it's
Oh,
important.
no problem.
Okay, let me see. Let me give it a shot.
We have Kyle in the audience. We have Juan with his hand raised.
Can you all see the agreement?
Yes, very nice.
Okay, so Mr. Goldstein, what I have is the first page. So To the extent that you want me to go to a particular section, just call that out and I'll scroll down so that everyone can follow along.
Sure. Paragraph, well, and do I have control of the screen as well?
No, it's just on my side. That's what I'm saying. Just
Yeah,
call
so
out whatever section you want and I'll bring it up.
pages are the recitals. They're sort of describing the status of the application, what is being done, the purpose of a development agreement, the need for a special exception, all of those sort of general portions of the story that's being told in the recitals. The next page, I think, still continues the recitals until it goes to the definitions. These are relatively standard definitions for the types of things that our sort of what land use and development projects do in terms of their terminology, and these are just the terms for the rest of the development agreement. And they really talk about development approvals. Now here, where it starts with school operator, these are the representations. This is where the section of the development agreement, this is the meat of development agreement that really talks about the where things are and what the representations are. The first paragraph, E, really goes into the use of the property. Rudy spent a considerable amount of time, I think, at each of the either public meetings, public hearings, talking about how we will have up to 400 students and 25% of those students will not be on campus at any given day. He went to great labor explaining the work-study programs, and I think everybody understands that this paragraph E, while relatively simple, is the nuts of what makes Cristo Rey so special, and really what was the core of the representations that we made. Paragraph F talks about the discussions that we had about making sure that there is some availability for students, young folks in El Portal to be able to attend Cristo Rey.
Joseph, can I interrupt you for a second? I received a message. Rudy would like to be included. So Kyle, can you let Rudy in, please, as a panelist? And also, please let Juan in for the purposes of the discussion, because I'm sure the members of the council or any attendee may have questions to Rudy as well. So he would like to be in as of now. Thank you. Sorry about that, Joseph.
No problem. So in this paragraph, if you recall, there was discussion about how if El Portal children met the qualifications to come, then we would certainly do everything that we could to make sure that they could attend. But beyond that, Rudy was able to get some clarification and was able to confirm that up to 10% of the incoming class, and remember this is built upon freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior years, but 10% of each class, incoming class, residents of El Portal, even those who may not qualify to otherwise go, and that means are struggling financially, that they're not struggling financially, they'll still be able to attend as a preferred student at Cristo Rey. The next paragraph, school operator annual report. At the beginning of each year, as I've already mentioned, we talk about the 400 students and the 25%. At the beginning of each year, at the request of the city, at the village manager, we would sit down and provide a report as to how many students, the percentages that are El Portal residents, et cetera, et cetera. The next paragraph, H, really talks about the use of the sanctuary property. That's the property up in the northeast corner of the project, and it talks about how the property will only be used for passive open space, contemplation, mindfulness, and learning, with the exception that there can be municipal events there upon agreement with the school operator, and that there can be school events only upon approval of the village council. And that's really just, in those special days where there might be some need for more than just sitting and thinking and meditating. is to be there. Paragraph I talks about the ability to manage the traffic. There was always a concern. There was a concern at the various meetings about making sure the traffic is controlled. In this instance, Cristo Rey is committing to not only sending its teachers and administrators out to move people through the parking lot as schools do, but if it's reasonably determined, and there's still some tightening that will need to come with this language, but is reasonably determined by us, by Cristo Rey, after talking with the village manager, that there's more than just Cristo Rey's folks there, that we would retain either off-duty El Portal police and public safety officers first, and if not them, others approved by the village to manage the traffic during the morning and afternoon departure peak hours. There was some discussion early on about the need for an additional police officer. We have committed in paragraph J to fund for the city 70% of the salary of a police officer for El Portal. That person would be the resource officer on the campus during the school hours, and then would share other duties that are standard El Portal duties. We also did something that I think is very unique. I haven't had the opportunity, but maybe twice in my 28-year career. But in paragraph K, and as an exhibit to the development agreement, Cristo Rey is committed that even though, if it ultimately is found to be property tax exempt, then it agrees to the payment of a payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot agreement, to cover the costs associated with the payments, with the otherwise loss of property taxes. It would be, as I mentioned earlier, it's expected that the payment would be ultimately based on a most highest and best use scenario with a $41,500 pilot upon having all four classes, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, within and operating the school. As a lead-in, we've also committed to if the freshman class enters, it's a $17,000 and change fee. Then when it's freshman and sophomore, or the next class, then it will be about $33,000 and climbs from there to the $41,000. So the concept is that as long as we are putting a drain on the village as a school, that we would come to the table and show that we want to be a neighbor and a participant and an active part of this project, an active part of the village. And finally, we committed to the development of the property in accordance with the site plan. This paragraph goes a little bit deeper in that it also talks about that we would preserve the existing trees shown on the landscape plan, that we're going to repair the sidewalks that are surrounding the property, and most importantly, and I think this was important to Juan in particular, using our commercially reasonable efforts to restore, maintain, and use the existing church structure in a manner that is consistent and compatible with, and generally preserves the current structure. So there was an important paragraph in this agreement that contemplates the operation of this consistent with its sort of historic operation. We then move into the general provision section of the agreement. We can scroll down. Really, there's a lot of, I think that it would be, to the extent that there are questions that come up, this is boilerplate for the most part language that goes through the rest of the agreement. I would point out, however, that paragraph M is also as important in that it talks about at the end of each school year and upon the request of the village manager, we're going to have a download, an annual meeting between the city and Cristo Rey to see what we did well, what we didn't do particularly well, how we can improve, and how things can move forward. Beyond that, paragraph N, O, this gets into the meat of what a development agreement is. It's a document that has some reasonable power, can be a 30-year long document under state statute. It authorizes some development. It allows a developer and a local government to make an agreement. But most important of all, these paragraphs really go to what the state statute requires that you have to meet in order to have a development agreement. With that, if Rudy is on and wants to add or supplement my comments, and obviously I can answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for bearing with me, and I just hope that I was able to confirm some of those things that were so important as we went through those discussions.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members. I think Joe went through quite well the specifics of the agreement. As he mentioned, we've been working on this for quite some time, and we have had what I call the pleasure to meet not only with the village officials, but also equally importantly with many of the village residents. Our conversations have always been frank, they've always been open, and we have always listened to the comments and concerns both of the council members as well as the village residents. Extremely pleased that we are at this juncture. We will continue in this spirit that we embarked upon, which is one of total friendship and cooperation, and trying to be the best neighbors that we can be for the village. And unless there are any specific questions for me, I will turn it back to the council. By the way, I'm Rudy Checky, and I didn't give you my address. 14627 Southwest 63rd Court, Miami, Florida, 33158, sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. That was the first thing I was going to ask you. And Rudy, for the record, is with Cristo Rey, the organization and company. I'm going to open it up to the committee if they have any questions for either our attorney, their attorney, or Rudy representing Cristo Rey. Just raise your hand.
If I may.
Yes, Councilperson Urban, yes.
I was reading through the development agreement, and I am quite pleased with where we've arrived at. And so I would really just say thank you as well to the attorney and to the members of Cristo Rey as well. It seems like, and Juan as well, thank you to you. It really seems like we've got just about every base covered that was concerned, and it really felt pretty good actually to read through this development agreement and see that everything really was attended to and addressed. So just want to say thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the committee would like to ask a question to either attorney or Rudy? Because if not, I'm going to open up for public comment.
No questions, Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor Nickerson,
No questions,
Councilperson Perrella. Any questions? Councilperson Perrella.
Yes, more than a question. Hi, how are you? More than a question is a comment. It's more, I'm not so thrilled with the tax pilot program and the fact that we have to wait until they actually fill all the years. As it goes by, it might, take quite a little bit longer, probably after 5 years, and is when we'll see the, $41,500 to be actually completed to contribution for the village. And about the school in general. And I don't know, I know there's been more, Cristo Rey has been great in addressing all the questions and everything, and they've been wonderful. And as far as fitting with all the requests, the requirements, or the requests from the village. But I still, you know, I don't see the school being like a productive kind of like fit into the neighborhood. I've talked to a lot of constituents and for the last few days, and no, actually nobody's in favor of the school. It's just, I mean, I've jumped into very late on the game because they've already been to the council, because there's already been you know, a few town hall meetings and first readings and all of that. And it's just that we need to consider more what residents had to say. And like I said, you know, right now we see a few attendees to the meeting, but it's not really fully like an open format for everybody to, you know, say what they need to say. It doesn't comply. It doesn't really fit with the charter, or you know, the charrette that many residents had their heart into and many years ago, a few years ago, and it doesn't go with the dynamic of everything was presented back then. Is you know, once the school goes there, it's a dead corner pretty much for the village as far as getting more, you know, contribution as if it is like a different type of development, you know, mixed use or residential or something else. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee before I open up for public comments? Yes.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I may. I just wanted to say thank you not only to Crystal Ray for how, you know, there's been so many things that we've wanted them to comply with when they didn't have to and they did, but and not only for, you know, a thank you to village manager, to Mr. Attorney Mayor Cabillos, and the village clerk for working so closely and getting us all the information on time. But I do want to give a special thanks to one of our residents, Courtney Kirk. He really went above and beyond as far as looking over the documents, raising poignant questions. We had the town halls and things like that. So do want to give a shout out and just recognize Courtney Kirk as a resident. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. If I hear no more from the committee, let me open up for public comments with regards to the development agreement. Give me 1 second. So I know we have a hand up, and the hand up is, I saw Joan Hector first, and then I believe Courtney Kirk second. Oh, Joan Hector, you put your hand down, so you don't want to, Joan? Okay, let's start with Courtney first, please.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. Courtney Kirk, 265 Northeast 87th Street.
Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. So a couple of things. I started off very much against this project. I thought it was going to be bad for the village. I thought it had a lot more negatives than positives. And as we worked through the process and worked with Cristo Ray and looked at what the alternatives were, I think this is the best solution for the village. And I think it's good for the village overall. It's not perfect. It's not, you know, exactly what we all wake up in the middle of the night saying, you know what, we'd be winning everything if we just got X. And this isn't it, but it is, I think, very good for the village. The property gets upgraded and updated. The village continues to get its revenue and then eventually increases the revenue. There's been some value added to the village as far as allowing some of our residents to attend who wouldn't otherwise qualify. And then there's also the minimal disruption to the villagers. Yes, there's likely going to be some moderate impact to morning traffic, but when most people in the area want to enjoy their backyards and want to enjoy the outdoor space, it should be relatively quiet, meaning on nights and weekends. That's significantly better than the likely alternatives, which would be either dense housing, or loud restaurants and retail, or an active office building. So, you know, while it may not be my ideal, I can't think of something that is reasonable that would be better. Having said that, Cristo Rey has been very, very responsive and very willing to change their details to meet the village concerns. The agreement, I think, as a number of the council members have mentioned, really does address the issues that have been raised. Is it perfect? No, there are a few tweaks that I think we'll continue to see between now and the final reading, but they should be minor. My understanding is that until the property is actually owned by Cristo Rey, when the Attachment B, the pilot agreement would go into effect, it will be continued to be taxed as it is today. And as they do improvements, those improvements increase the taxable value, and thus the village gets some additional taxation revenue between now and the time it's actually owned by them. I did have just one question, and I don't know whether it's to our village attorney or their attorney or whomever. So I'm just going to pose it, and Madam Mayor, if you could direct it appropriately. The question is, on Section J, it says the police officer salary 70%. Is that purely salary, or does that include benefits and other things? Is it the fully loaded cost, or is it purely the salary? That was just something in reading today that I saw, and it's just a question. With that, I say thank you very much, and I do support this effort and this project, thinking it's the best thing for El Portal, given the alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Norman, I'll let you answer. I mean, I recall we worked through it with the manager, but I'll go ahead and let you answer.
Yeah, the way, and that's, we should clarify it a little bit more before we get to the meeting later this month. The intent of the parties is to have the 70% be for the salary, and salary includes whatever benefits an officer is entitled to. What we excluded intentionally from the 70% figure was equipment, the car, and whatever equipment the officer will require, standard issue that all El Portal officers utilize. So, Mr. Kirk and members of the committee, I think Joe and I will go back and maybe just tweak that a little bit so that there's no ambiguity or confusion in the final agreement.
Courtney, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
And I don't know whether you can hear me. This is Joe Goldstein, but we agree. That's part of the tweaking. We'll clarify.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was Joseph from the from Cristo Rey's law attorneys. We have another hand up in the attendees. That's Joan Hector. If we can let Joan Hector in. And state your name and address for the record, please. Joan, are you on? Joan, can you hear us? Oh, you're connecting to audio now. Whenever you're ready, Joan. I think you're trying to connect to audio. I see Courtney's hand back up. I don't know if they are not practicing social distancing and she's at his house. Do we want to let Courtney back in? Maybe she's going to use their. Okay.
We are, in fact, in our own homes, although we are next door to each other, Madam Mayor. But thank you, and we do practice social distancing. I don't know if there's anybody else speaking, but maybe we can have somebody else go, and I can see if we can help Joni. I'm not sure. The AT&T internet has been very poor today, so it may be that that's the issue.
Joan, can you hear us now? I think she finally connected her audio. Joni, can you hear us? Nope.
Up to you what you want to do, Madam Mayor.
While she's trying to connect, is there anybody else in the attendees in the audience that would like to ask a question with regard to the development agreement?
Madam Mayor, if I may, Ms. Hector had sent an email to myself. I believe she CC'd the council on Friday. So with your permission, I could at least read her comment into the record, which I suspect it would be in line with what she'd be wanting to say tonight.
That would be perfect. Please, thank you.
Okay. This is, excuse me?
No, while she's trying to get on, yes.
Right. This was, again, from Joan Hector. It was delivered to my office on Friday, May 8th, 2020 at 12:19 p.m. Good afternoon, everyone. Courtney Kerr has shared with me the development agreement regarding Cristo Rey, as I've asked him to keep me informed of any new information that he had regarding the property next to my house. I was favorably impressed that it pretty well encapsulated the terms and concerns that had been brought up in the various meetings, discussions that have previously taken place. I do still have one main concern after reading through the agreement, and it is a subject I have raised in the council meetings. I would also still like there to be a covenant that will be recorded which maintains a sanctuary garden parcel as green space, cannot be a parking lot or a building, in parentheses. Although the agreement will be recorded, it remains in effect for either 30 years or the termination of the property being operated as a school, whichever occurs first. I feel the only effective way to protect the enjoyment and integrity of my residents would be the covenant, as that would run to any future owners or developers of the property. As you know, my house, perhaps more so than anyone else, is the most impacted by whatever use the sanctuary property has in store. I will state again that Ken and I both feel that this project is a great fit for the village and for us. I truly hope for your support in my request. Joan Hector, 260 Northeast 88th Street, El Portal, Florida.
I don't know if you can hear me now because my dear friend Courtney had brought over his tablet so I could speak, because no matter what I do, I am technologically challenged and cannot get it pulled up on my tablet. So here's Courtney knocking on my back door. Thank you very much, Mr. Powell, for reading that, because it succinctly says exactly what I wanted to say, which is I truly do believe that Cristo Rey is absolutely the best choice for what we could have in the property next door to my house. What I am very, very much concerned with is the fact that had there been a restaurant, as we had previously talked about, had there been a lot of other commercial enterprises, I feel that it disintegrates the integrity of having a residential property right next door to it. The one thing I don't want to see is to have a bunch of dumpsters right next to my house, to have a lot of noise. So having Cristo Rey here makes me very comfortable thinking, you know what, most of the noise that I'm going to hear is going to be while I'm working. And granted, although I'm 67 years old, I still intend to be working for a number of years. My backyard is my paradise. That is one of the reasons why I bought this house 34 years ago, because I loved the tree canopy. I loved the birds, the squirrels, the wildlife, the peace and the tranquility. I don't want that disturbed, no matter what. I really, truly do not. If there is any way to figure out how to still get a covenant, that is certainly something that I really would like to have, only because I feel that it protects the integrity of the property in the future. Thank you.
If I can ask the attorney to, in lieu of what Joni has requested for us a few times, what has been proposed in lieu of that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of what you said.
So while what Joni has been requesting from us and from the applicant is not exactly coming to fruition, what is in lieu of that?
Well, what's in lieu of it is in the development agreement that requires the school to keep the parcel that's adjacent to her home, the sanctuary of the quiet space, for the term of the duration of the agreement.
And for purposes of the audience, can you explain the difference of what she's asking to what exactly is being proposed?
Sure. What Ms. Hector is referring to would be a covenant that would run with the property. So in other words, regardless of whether Cristo Rey or some subsequent third party purchases the property, that covenant would run with the land and would always require that space to be quiet space, open space. Nothing could be developed on it. It would be a passive use for so long as the covenant is in place. The covenant obviously would run with the land. It would be for the benefit of the village, and only the village, through a vote of the council, would be able to squash or withdraw the requirements of the covenant once it's in place.
Any questions from the committee to the attorney on this matter? Any other comments from Joni or Courtney while we're in public comments?
None for me, other than I think you summed it up quite well. And you're right. My big concern is what happens if Cristo Rey ends up moving out down the road. They decide that, you know what, we want more than 400 students. We need to locate someplace else that's going to allow us to increase our student population. And now I'm going to be stuck again with saying, I got to fight this, because frankly, I'm tired of fighting. I don't want that. And having said that, I do want to say again that Cristo Rey has been absolutely nothing but above board, cooperative, and great listeners into our concerns. I would like to mention that. I have no qualms with that whatsoever.
All right,
thank you.
sorry, Madam Mayor, this is Courtney Kirk, 265 Northeast 87th Street. I'm sorry, I had to have Joni take a few steps back so I could get back to the iPad without social distance infractions. One thing I would like to point out is the parcel directly next to Joni was single family zoned up until a few years ago, and only was changed from single family because of the ownership with the church. So when Joni bought the property, and for the last multiple decades, this was always zoned single family until very recently. So her concern is because of a change in zoning, not because of a change in some opinion of hers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the attendees? See a hand raised. Oh, let me, Councilperson Pereira, let me close public comments, okay?
Fine.
Any other public comments? I see no hands raised going once, going twice. Any public comments? I see somebody just came on. All right, I'll open up if need be. Let me go back. Let me close public comments and open it up back to the committee. And Councilperson Pereira has a comment. Go ahead.
Yes, I was gonna say that in that piece of land, I think a single family resident can fit in there. What if it, Cristo Rey will be allowed, once they decide to move or to sell the property, to sell that piece of land as a residential area and not be part of the whole, the rest of the property. And so, they can actually build single family residence on that area once, if they decide to move out. So they will still have the profit of that, they will be selling two properties pretty much. Cristo Rey, in the event that they decide to move out. That could be a very good, because they won't be losing anything. They'll still be selling the whole parking lot and the whole, complex or compound, and then just have that piece of property, sell it as a residential piece of land.
Mayor Kubilos, can I interject for a second?
Yes, you may.
Let me start by going back to the discussions that we had and the various meetings that were had, and emphasize that the Hectors were very clearly to us on behalf of Cristo Rey as extremely open-minded, and the folks that we knew we needed to try and care about. The development agreement itself is a 30-year term. As somebody who's been practicing law for 28 years, 27 years, I have, recently tried to face the reality of exactly what 30 years means. And so we have been operating, we think, fairly in recognizing that this is a piece of property that is put to appropriate use. We've done everything we can, as Ms. Hector suggested, as it relates to that. Forever, on the other hand, is a very long time. I am, without the benefit of looking over my shoulder and whispering to my client, because that seems to be the only limitation, and that is, that we can't necessarily communicate with each other. We still have to go to the village council for 2 readings. We feel very strongly about it not being forever, but we also feel very strongly about communicating and doing well for our most immediate neighbor, the Hectors. So if you could let us keep that issue on the table, let us try and come back to you with some sort of a solution, but we will reach out to the Hectors over the next couple weeks. And, you know, again, I'm not sure that forever is the answer, but the concept of maybe something else, and let us have a conversation amongst ourselves.
Thank you, Joseph. Any other comments from the committee or questions? We're hearing none. Did Norman, Christia, Juan, did you want to make a comment, add anything?
No, I was just going to support the work of our village attorney, our mayor, and just everyone who's a part of this whole process. And it was lengthy, and I'm glad that we've come away with a good product and that residents seem to really support it. I think it's something that we should all be very proud of, and it'll be nice to see something go into that space. It's been empty for too long, and this is a good opportunity for children in our area and throughout Miami-Dade County.
Norman, I have a question for you. So given what the attorney has just said, if there were to be an motion to adopt this development agreement, which actually I want to ask you about, we need to talk about the contribution agreement as well, but if there was a motion to adopt the development agreement, it would need to be contingent upon also what he said, and still have a conversation as it relates to the concerns that the resident, Ms. Joni Hector, has.
No, it doesn't have to be that way. You can basically, as you've done with all your committee meetings, make a recommendation to forward the proposed ordinance and attached development agreement, including the pilot, to the council for first reading. There's going to be actually 2 more readings. If and after there has been the discussion that Mr. Goldstein has put on the record that he's going to have with his client, and then ultimately with Ms. Hector, if there is some tweaking of that section of the development agreement or something more formal put in place, it would just be included in the agreement. And since it's not going to change the overall substance of the development agreement, it wouldn't affect the first or the second reading.
Yeah, just to clarify, yes, it must go through 2 readings, and both readings must be at a council meeting if it were to pass this evening.
Right, so that's correct. So we have 2 more public hearings before this is finally adopted, if that's the council's will.
Okay, perfect. Does the committee have any questions? I see that Courtney has his hands up, and I don't mind reopening for public comments, but any other comments or questions from the committee with what we have just discussed about one of our residents' concerns and the comment that Mr. Goldstein has made? Okay, hearing none. To the attorney real quick before I open it up to the attendees. Are we going to go through the contribution agreement as well? Can we do that now?
Yes, I believe that Mr. Goldstein had did that, but we can do it. We can do it again. Let me share the screen so that everyone can see.
Just for the attendees, we're going to go through the contributions, which lays out the pilot program in a little more detail, and then I'll reopen it up for public comments to talk about what we have just discussed with the development agreement plus the contribution agreement. And if you could just share the contribution agreement to the screen, please.
Give me 1 second. Let me find it again. Can you all see that?
Yes, thank you. So I don't know if you or Joseph wants to walk us through it briefly, and then if the committee has any questions, this will be the time to ask.
Okay. Well, again, this is the portion of the agreement that's the exhibit to the agreement concerning the payments. That's probably the best way to describe this, that the school will make once it becomes fully operational as a school. Now, what I mean by fully operational, the way the agreement talks about the payments that will be made by Cristo Rey is found in paragraph 2, which I have on the screen right now. Let me see if I can make it bigger. You'll see that the ceiling, if you will, of the special assessment payment will be $41,500, and that amount will be paid to the village once there are actually 4 grade levels at the school. So when you look at the bottom part of paragraph 2A, you'll see that if there's 1 grade level, the payment will be $17,000. 2 is 67 cents, and then 33 and a third and 34 cents at 3 grade levels. Also built into the payment is an adjustment that will be adjusted annually based upon, we resolved on just simply taking the consumer price index for the surrounding counties that will adjust the payment on the first of each subsequent year. So there will be an increase. Now the pilot makes it clear that the payment is not due unless the school use is being operated, or the school is operating at the school. So as Mr. Goldstein and I believe somebody else stated earlier, the pilot payment is not obligated until the school is actually in operation. Let's see. Now the aspect of this that will involve the village's obligations will be that the payment will be considered a special assessment. Just like, for instance, when you get your tax bill, you'll see that if there's a waste collection or some type of fire fee, this will show up on their tax bill, and our finance department will obviously provide those figures to the tax collector so that the figures will be included in their tax bill. I think I covered everything. If I missed anything, Mr. Goldstein, you can.
The only thing I would add, and you did it much more succinctly than I did, that this only happens when we become tax exempt. Until then, we're paying taxes.
Right.
And so this isn't a free ride. The reason that we had to step in when there's one class, there's 100 students, we're getting the revenues supporting 100 students, and then the 2 years we have 200 students. So this is really the phase in is really related to when the money that we have to pay for the services that we're providing, provided that it is a tax exempt property.
Thank you, Norman and Joseph. Does the committee have any questions to either one before I open it up to public comments? Okay, hearing, does anybody have a hand raised? No. Hearing none. Let me go ahead and close the public Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, open up for public comments. Is there anybody from the audience that has a question as it relates to the contribution agreement that was just presented by both attorneys? All righty. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close it and go back to the Planning and Zoning Committee. Any questions? No hands raised. Okay. Any comments from neither Norman, Juan, or Cristia? No. Joseph, any last comment? Rudy, any last comments?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. Rudy Checky here. I'm fine with where we are right now. Thank you.
Let's take a look at the. 1 second. All right, seeing that we have gone through the development agreement, now to adopt the development agreement, we must adopt the ordinance, and the ordinance is attached. With that said, to the attorney, can you please read the ordinance into the record?
An ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of El Portal, Florida, approving and authorizing the mayor and village manager to execute and to otherwise enter into a development agreement between the Village of El Portal and Cristo Rey Miami High School, Inc. for the development of property located within the village as recorded in Official Records Book 2996-4, page 2748 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida, and as more fully described in the development agreement, which is attached hereto as Exhibit A, authorizing the appropriate village officials to do all things necessary to effectuate the intent of this ordinance, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance? Denise, do we have the number? I see it's empty right now.
Haven't numbered it yet because I'm waiting to see if it passes from here, then it gets numbered. Or I can pick it up.
Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance accepting the Cristo Rey development agreement and contribution agreement? And
Motion to adopt.
The motion's been made by Councilperson Roman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Councilperson Roman. It's seconded by Councilperson Urban. Before I call for a vote from the clerk, I just want to reiterate the point that was made by Goldstein where, and this has happened before, we workshop through an agreement, we workshop through an ordinance, and it gets passed. But when we go to the first reading, we're going to be looking for that perhaps addition that they're going to make as it relates to the concern for the covenant or the green space that was set upon. So I just wanted to put that for the record. Any other discussion before I request for roll call? Hearing none, may I please have roll call?
Roll call. Councilperson Perrella. Member Perrella.
Oh.
Member Urban.
Yes.
Member Roman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Nickerson.
Yes.
Chair Cubillos.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Reach out to
This
the head.
will, I'm sorry, who's saying something?
It was Goldstein. I just said.
Oh,
we'll
sorry. My apologies. Can you repeat that?
All I was saying was we will thank you and we will reach out to the Hectors.
Okay, perfect. A couple of things before I close. So this has to go for 2 readings. And the first reading, if we make the proper timeline, my recommendation is going to be the May and June or May and July. We can have the conversation depending how swiftly the attorneys will work to see if there's going to be any amendments. I do want to let the committee know in the event that they haven't been advised that the governor has extended the order for 60 days. So the meetings will continue like this for the next 60 days. So we're looking at meetings. What month are we in? We're in May. We're looking into the middle of July still. Is that correct? We've May, June. Yes, to the middle of July to still be running meetings legally, and we're authorized statewide, countywide to be hosting committee meetings as well as council meetings virtually. Just an FYI in the event the council and the committee was not aware of that. Having said that, for the record and for everybody, the applicant would like for this to go before the council meeting in May, and then June. If not, it'll either be May, June, May, July, or June, July. So I like to put that out there. So this is the time frame where you can call the manager. You can call any council member if you have any questions or you're still uncertain about something. This is the time to do it. Generally, in the past, we like to keep a month lapse. We've been working on that as well. But this is the time that if there's any questions, this is the time to ask. And I'll say that again, whether you contact any council member or whether you contact any committee member, better said, and whether you contact the manager, and then through us, you can contact the attorney as well. And I believe you all have seen this evening, and from what you've heard from those that have spoken, the applicant is pretty open with regards to receiving emails as well as concerns. And again, this is the time to do it because the agreement must go through two hearings, just as we did with the other development agreement for the Cavista. On that note, also on the second reading, like we did for the Cavista, is when we would present the site plan. So the first reading, whether it's going to be May or June, will be the first reading for this ordinance. Then at the second reading, like we did for the Cavista, I will ask for the site plan for Cristo Rey to be presented. I want to remind everybody about that because this is the opportunity. You have May, you're going to have June, and you may have even July to still ask questions as it relates to the site plan and as it relates to the project itself and the ordinance. Like I stated in a message that went out to all of the residents, I believe on April 22nd, and I'll reiterate it again today, the website, there is a sub-website to the planning and zoning page. If you click onto the planning and zoning page, you're going to click onto active projects. You're going to see Cristo Rey will come up immediately. You will have everything that you will need, traffic study, site plan, staff recommendation, whatever you may need, take a look at it. And from there, if you have any questions, the time to ask is now. So we're giving ample time for the community, for all of us to feel comfortable to make a decision on this application, whatever the decision may be. With that said, I have no other comments as it relates to planning and zoning. Any comments from the committee? Okay, hearing none. Stand by. Let me see. Agenda. Okay. I'll open up to Good and Welfare. If anybody in Good and Welfare has a comment at this time. Okay, hearing none. I'm going to take advantage in Good and Welfare. I was late coming into today's meeting. The Miami-Dade League of Cities had a call with the county mayor as it relates to the opening of businesses. I can say that it looks like the businesses, some of them will be opening as of Monday. As soon as that final order comes in, it's most likely going to be tomorrow. What happened today was there was a draft of the order, but the governor must approve the complete order, and there was a few components that the county had to update. Then they're having a conversation with the governor tonight in Broward County in the hopes that Broward County and Miami-Dade County can simultaneously standardize the opening for the following Monday. I can tell you as of now, for sure, the only thing I know for sure is that when there is an interior space opening for phase 1, that's Monday, the businesses that will not be open still on Monday are going to be hotels, massage parlors, fitness, yoga studios, Pilates studios, pools, whether the pools are in condos or whether the pools well, the hotels are going to be closed, so the pools are going to be closed too, and the beaches. None of those will be open still, and those will not be considered in phase 1 at all whatsoever. What will be considered in phase 1 is going to be restaurants, small business, shopping centers, the mall, retail, and any small businesses within that nature. That's the gist of what we got from the call today. And then starting tomorrow, the next subgroup that he's putting, the Miami-Dade County Mayor is putting together is for summer camps. The big conversation is what's going to happen in the summer because summer camps are still not open, and schools, as we all know, are still closed. So the group that starts tomorrow is going to deal all with nothing but summer camps and how that's going to roll out whenever that may roll out, whether it's going to be June or July. That pretty much concludes what happened in the call right before I got on this call today. I'll take any questions. If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, or if there's any other public comments, because we're still in Good and Welfare. All right, hearing none, I'll open it back to Good and Welfare to the council. Any comments? Not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made by Councilperson Roman. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion to adjourn, Madam Mayor.
Second by Vice Mayor Nicholson. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Our Planning and Zoning Committee meeting adjourns at 7:46 PM. Thank you.